Welcome, ladies and gents, my name is Curci, and I submit to the table a brand new term, the term of the good game. And what I mean by the good game is that it is a game that is technically good. What it did isn't bad. Like, it's not a bad game, it's just not a good game. Alright, let's just say it. Rise of the Tomb Raider is a good game. Why is it a good game? Because it just doesn't build upon what was already there. Remember in the last video when I talked a lot about how Fallout 4 was a true sequel to Fallout 3, how it took the mechanics that was in Fallout 3 and built upon it and made it better and innovated upon it? Well, that's not what Rise of the Tomb Raider did to the rebooted Tomb Raider from 2013. See, that was a game that I really liked, mainly because of the fact that it rebooted the Tomb Raider series, but it also took the character of Lara, it put her through this situation that had her develop into what we now know as the Tomb Raider. But there was this character development with Lara, there was this overall plot that was pretty interesting. And you do get a pretty interesting overall plot in Rise of the Tomb Raider, but the problem here is that there's no character development with Lara, and it's essentially the same game. This is something that I'm not a huge fan of. When it comes to games that are sequels to other games, I want to see newer things. I want to see different takes on the gameplay, not the same thing just done again. There was a lot of missed opportunity with Rise of the Tomb Raider, and it's very disappointing to me. If you haven't figured it out, a little disappointed with this game. Not saying the game's bad, it is just a good game. So what about the story? There's a strong story element to the game because there is no multiplayer. It's all single player, so obviously story is pretty important. Lara's still trying to deal with the events that she experienced in the first game. She's trying to understand this supernatural thing that is now in the world, that she now knows is a real thing. She saw things in the previous game that she can't explain, and now there are other things that she still can't explain, but she knows that they're true because of the things that she can't explain that had happened before. Actually made sense, oddly enough. See, her father spent the last days of his life trying to understand something, and now that has passed on to her. She now has to understand what her father died over. Instead of her being marooned on an island, now she is in the middle of the Siberian tundra. She's got to deal with a lot of mountains, a lot of snow, a lot of bears, and a whole lot of Trinity. Trinity are the bad guys. The long and short of it is that they're going after the very same thing that Lara's going after. So there's a big cat and mouse game going on between Trinity and Lara. Lara's the mouse. Haven't figured that out. Because Trinity knows that Lara is resourceful. She's smart. She's intelligent. If they can't figure it out, they just have to stay behind Lara, and Lara will figure it out. Lara will take them to the direction that they want to go. But they're not nice people, so action takes place. This is an example of one of the things that this game does that does not build upon the previous game. Because the combat is exactly the same. You have a shotgun, you have a pistol, you have a bow, you have an assault rifle. Yeah, you can craft things on the go, which is something that I like. I'm not saying that this game had no new additions, just barely any. You could craft like a makeshift grenade. You can craft like a makeshift Molotov. But also keeping those things in mind, it also made you more aware of your surroundings. While you're ducking cover behind a crate, you see like, oh wait, if I go over there, there's a tin can that I can pick up, and if I can pick up that tin can, I can create a grenade. If I throw the grenade, it will get those guys off balance, it will stun them, and I will be able to kill them. But that's if you're going to go ahead and use an aggressive approach. But if you decide to go stealth, you could do that too. But again, same thing like in the previous game. When Lara is around enemies or hostile creatures, she will crouch down. When she crouches down, she's basically in stealth mode. It's just an automatic thing that happens. It made the game feel a little bit more natural, a little bit more smooth. Like that was one thing you didn't really have to think about. Lara just kind of did it. And by using her survival instinct, which is basically like her eagle vision. Lara Croft is an assassin, you heard it here first. Be a badass assassin now that I think about it. A possible crossover game. That's not gonna happen. But the thing about when she's in her instinct mode, when she uses that ability, she can see that certain enemies will be red and certain enemies will be yellow. Yellow enemies are completely out of line of sight of his friend. So if you shoot that guy in the head, he's gonna go down and nobody's gonna know. But shoot the red guy in the head, it's because other people can see him. That's why he's red. So if you shoot him, it's gonna alert people. But see, I like this stealthing mechanics. Even though they were the exact same in the previous game, I like the fact that you can shoot an arrow and the guys will respond to things that they hear. This will have them go toward that sound, and by going toward that sound, you can jump from above and like stab them in the throat like an assassin. But you can also build up some of your weapons as well. You can go out in the world in these regions and discover strong boxes, and inside these strong boxes are going to be pieces. These pieces, when put together, will build a new weapon, and you can also mod out those weapons. You can level them up. There's also a store in the game that exists just it's not really your traditional store. You don't go there to be like, I'm gonna go purchase ammo and purchase grenades and things like that. No, you go there and there's like some cool things like, oh, I'm gonna get a silencer, I'm gonna get a rope ascender, I'm gonna get this outfit. Outfits were another thing in this game that they introduced like a mechanic, but you never really used. For example, they'll say like, oh, Lara can change her outfits as she plays, so different outfits will have different benefits. And yeah, as you complete missions, which are another new addition to the game, and I'll get into that in a bit, you may be rewarded by certain clothing that may have certain certain benefits, where some will be like you'll take less damage, or some will be like, oh, well, you move faster. I'm probably making that up, but I'm just saying, like, that's an example of some of the bonuses that you'll get if you wear certain gear. But once I found the one that said, oh, you'll take less damage, I was like, alright, well, I'm wearing this one. It just was one of the things where it was like, you don't have to do it. It's not going to have a real serious impact. I guess for like people that want to get really technical, I guess it really does have an impact. But like, honestly, is it going to affect the way you play the game? Nah. So I talked about missions and strong boxes. So I'm getting a little bit into open world. So let's make that jump. The open world elements are just as good as they were in the previous game. There are these larger areas and there are collectibles that you can go out and find. There are challenges that you can complete in certain areas. Like say, for example, in one area, you may have to cut down the Soviet flag. In another area, you might have to go explore the caves. In the previous Tomb Raider, there was always like this miscellaneous objective that you can complete. Like, say, for example, in one, it was like, oh, burn all these certain flags with this insignia on it. While others were like, here, just pull down and destroy the effigies. We're just trying to take back this area. In this game, there could be a couple. It could be like, oh, go search for this. Oh, and go ahead and cut down this. Which, if you really think about it, it's just not all that different. The only difference is that in the previous game, it was like, when you got into the area, and it's like, oh yeah, get all 10 effigies. Where in this game, it's like, oh, here's one of the challenges. Like, there is a challenge, but you don't know what it is, so go discover it. It's like, yeah, that's a new addition, I guess. Yeah, you had your optional tombs, and each tomb had a puzzle, and it made you think a little bit. I wish there was more of that outside of the tombs, but still, what was there was pretty good. I had trouble buying into the fact that they were, in fact, tombs. Actually, by the end of each tomb, Lara discovers this book, and basically from that, she gains an ability. But if she's discovering a book, does that constitute a tomb? Like, what is a tomb? If I bury a book, is that considered a tomb? Or is that just like a vault or something? No, something very minor. I didn't even bring it up during the review because I didn't even think it was worth bringing up, but still, kind of noticed. I was like, this is not a tomb. Nobody's dead. And, oh, people are dead. But look. Moving on. But then there's also missions. Missions, you go out and you discover these allies, and by talking to them, sometimes they'll ask you to do a specific thing. Like, say, for example, it's like, oh, hey, we've been having a problem with wolves, so why don't you go ahead and go clear out that wolf den so that we can occupy a little bit later, and then when you revisit us, we're gonna have another mission for you. Missions I liked. I liked the fact that there was another new thing that I could do with the game, and there are just like little side objectives that are in addition to the main ones. And you can always revisit different areas as you play through the game. As you discover these different campsites, you can also fast travel between those campsites. So say, for example, I'm at the first area of the game, and then I go all the way later on to the end of the game, I can still fast travel back to that first area, complete all of those little collectibles that I missed before, and then go back and continue with the story. And then once you beat the main story, it throws you back in the world, be like, alright, look, you're not done, just go have fun. I don't know what this hand motion was. So what are you getting out of all this? You have this open world that has some newer elements, but it's basically the same. You have combat, which has some newer elements, but are basically the same. What you have is a game that just basically copied what the original game did, because people like that original game, so they're like, let's just do that again. And then they were like, well, we gotta change something up, so they just added in these stupid little things. So I was like, oh, dude, how about with challenges? We make it so that they can't tell what the challenges are unless they go out and discover it. Let's add in this currency. Let's add in this language mechanic. The language mechanic is that as Lara discovers like murals or things like that, she will learn about a certain language like Russian or Greek. And then she will be able to decipher other things later. And by deciphering those other things, it might reveal different locations on the map, like different like coin caches, and the coins are basically the currency in the game, which you will forget about when you forget that the store is in existence, because you will forget about the store. It's like all these little changes are cool on paper, but at the end of the day, did they really change much? No, they did not. That's the difference between Rise of the Tomb Raider being just a good game as opposed to being a good game, because I feel like it did the bare minimum. Like, it just, okay, what was there was fine, I guess. So I'm left by relying on the story, but the story had a lot of missed opportunity, more specifically with Lara's character. Like I said before, one of the main reasons why I loved the previous Tomb Raider before is how Lara was so different at the start of the game than what she was at the end of the game. Like, there was character development. She became the Tomb Raider. But in this game, there's no development. She's the same throughout. There's nothing that she gains at the end of this story that she didn't have in the beginning of the story, other than a conclusion to what she was overall looking for. At the start of the game, everybody just kind of says, okay, Lara's crazy, she's just as crazy as her father, she's believing in this supernatural stuff, and they've just been kind of like brushing her off. But overall, that storyline, because I expected this game to be like, Lara's going crazy, she's dealing with these things internally, and she has to battle those demons while she goes through this game. Especially from the announcement trailer, where it shows Lara in a therapy session. It shows her dealing with these psychological things that she has. It's almost like post-traumatic stress because of the events that she saw in the first game. There were some terrible things that she saw. There were some things that she had to resort to. They address that, but then they kind of brush over it and they just kind of move on. Once Lara starts embarking on this journey, that's it. As far as all that goes, done. That is a missed opportunity. Now, the overall story and the overall plot, that's cool. That's interesting. It's just disappointing that they didn't further evolve the character of Lara, that they didn't further build upon the existing gameplay mechanics. That's why Rise of the Tomb Raider is a good game, because what's there is fine, but it just doesn't really kind of have that spark about it. It's the same kind of feeling that I had for Battlefield Hardline. Is Battlefield Hardline good? It's a good game. You sit there and you say to yourself, what's wrong with the game? Nothing's wrong with it. It's just not, it doesn't have that wow factor about it. I'm not saying that every game's gotta wow me like insanely, but it's still gotta be at that point where you say to yourself, this is why this game is worth playing. So who would I recommend this to? Listen, if you want to see what happens to Lara after the events of the previous Tomb Raider, then yeah, go ahead and play this game because it's going to tell you that story. But as for everybody else, I'm left to assume that they didn't play the previous game, and I can't in good conscience recommend this game over that one, because that one was better. Especially aside from the fact that you might get a little confused in terms of story, especially early on. Are those two stories linking? Like, do you need to play the first one? In order to understand Lara's mindset and what she's doing and why she's doing it, then yeah, you do have to kind of play that one. It's not a requirement. Like, there's no like overreaching story between the two games. Like, they're both standalone plots, but the motivation of Lara's character, you get a lot more depth if you play the first game. I don't know. I mean, this game exists, it's there, and it's good, and that's it. I'm not saying the game is bad, it's just good. And that's pretty much it as far as Rise of the Tomb Raider. But hey, if you like the video, go ahead and like the video, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel as well. Both of those things really help out a lot, and I would really appreciate it. If you want to see another video just like this one, go ahead and click this link here. And if you want to see more awesome, cool stuff, go ahead and check out some of the links down in the description below. But guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.